Yo, who's the first person? Oh, Jimmy.
Hey, what's up, man? I'm going a bit early, so I'm here and ready.
Hey, guys.
Hello, Mike's here. Hi, Mike. Samad's here. Got a good little crew. We were just chatting about the heat.
Classic Brits.
That's it. I'm worried to go to the UK. Like, my mum's place she just leaves her window wide open in the summertime. But I've got a feeling when I'm there, it's going to be really bad. And we've got like a 6-month-old baby.
Somehow the UK heat is worse than Portugal, to be honest. There's no breeze anywhere in the UK.
It's actually true. I think when you're in a country that's made for the cold, right? You've got like double glazed windows, everything's like triple insulated. It's really
but
hard
even
to
outside,
get that heat out.
I was there last summer and I couldn't stand the heat.
Are you based in Portugal, Gabriel?
Yeah, next to Lisbon.
But here in Pakistan, 40 plus is normal.
So yeah, a little bit of a heads up then. So kind of put on a few design events over the years, and it takes a huge amount of effort, and you know, you can be on it for about a month depending on how big they are. And actually the best thing about it is that everybody just gets to chat and kind of connect and make new friends. So because I'm so far away these days, mostly, I wanted to do a bit of an online version and just give it a bit of like an end of the week vibe, so we can kind of just talk about design stuff, but also just talk about like anything really. So that's why it's called the Team Lunch. So we're now on to this is the 8th official episode. We did like a Figma workshop before. So yeah, it's going good. Met Jimmy through doing this. A few other kind of like online YouTube crew we've connected with as well. So yeah, very young channel. Gabriel, if you could just maybe drop the link to the channel in so folks could give it a little subscribe, that would be amazing. And yeah, we whilst we like to keep kind of things casual and you know, we can end up talking about anything, we also kind of have topics. And I like to try and kind of avoid a lot of the big buzz topics and actually talk about stuff that we really care about and the stuff that we find it's a bit more what we do on a day-to-day. So obviously AI and AI tools is a huge conversation at the moment, but I don't really see a lot of people talking about what they actually use it for on a day-to-day. You know, you get your big high-level keynote presentation or famous people talking about this and that, but like, what do we actually use it for on a day-to-day basis? So I feel like that's kind of something that's interesting to talk about. So that takes me on to some of the special guests that we invited. You're all special, but we invited Anette, whose partner I used to work with at Accenture. Anette, do you want to say hi quickly, if you don't mind? Quick 10-second intro.
Yeah, great. Hi, my name is Anette, or Anette. That's the Danish version of my name. So I currently work as a principal researcher at Lloyds Banking Group in London. And my background is in human-computer interaction. So I've got a PhD focusing on AI in work practice. So obviously this is a topic that's been really interesting to me for a very long time. And I can see how it's just becoming a lot more relevant, especially in the recent couple of years. And I think because of my background and focusing on the role of judgment and decision making in these contexts, my interest is, you know, a lot to do with the work itself, not just the technology, which obviously can change over time. But it is obviously right now very interesting how it's moving from something that at a lot of points I think were a lot more theoretical to becoming a lot more practical. But in financial services, as I think is it Todd who works at a bank as well in the UAE, we are obviously quite restricted in terms of what are the tools that we are actually able to use. So we are thinking about lots of ways that we can be creative in how we go about using these tools. So I'm going to be focusing a lot more about how we are using tools rather than the number of different tools that we're using. And I can talk a little bit more about that.
Thanks. So Anette also mentioned Todd, who works at Wio Bank in the UAE. So I will resist telling you a little bit about Wio Bank and let Todd do that. So Todd.
Thanks, guys. Hey, everyone. Hey, Annette. So my name's Todd. Head up the design team at Wio Bank. We've been in the market only for a few years now, but seen sort of rapid growth. I think since three and a bit years. So we are super heavily involved in how this kind of industry is changing. We have a retail business and invest side of the business. which I kind of have a little hand in each side. Again, like you, Annette, financial space. So shipping product using AI, we have to do that in a very sort of regulated way. But we're in our very safe sort of secure environment. We're experimenting with a whole bunch of different tools to to ideate and to kind of ship more smarter, intelligent, better products for our customers. But so yeah, looking forward to the chat, guys.
Last but not least, we got Jimmy, who works for OK Social. Again, I will not introduce him, but Jimmy's going to tell us a little bit about how he's using AI. And over to you. Quick intro, please.
Yo, what's up? I'm Jimmy. So yeah, as Gareth said, I co-run a studio called OK Social. We're a boutique motion design studio based in London, but we've got a team across the globe. We're a small studio. We work with some big global brands. We work with brands like Google, Netflix, Reddit, EA, for some of our clients from this year. And yeah, I kind of head up the operations side as well as kind of biz dev and partnerships. So whilst my tools are a lot less creative, it's all about kind of streamlining the way we work and looking at ways that we can operate as a small team more efficiently to, help us kind of like ride this wave of indie studios that's really popping off at the minute. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Looking forward to chatting today.
Amazing. Thanks, Jimmy. So yeah, I guess we can get straight into just seeing who else is in. We've got Mahmood, who's our motion designer based in Dubai. We got Manny, I mentioned before, head of design at RMIT University in Vietnam. We got Mike, buddy of mine. We've got Oliver's joined. Peter, who works for Amazon, is posting amazing film and media posters on LinkedIn all the time. We've got Todd Web. We've got Tahir, lots of people. Brenton. Cool. Thanks for joining, Doug. Charlotte, thanks for joining again, Charlotte. If anyone wants to say hi quickly, all good. If not, I'm going to hand it over to Anette, who can start talking about what she is exploring and doing at Lloyds Bank. And I'm just going to pull up our questions. Annette, so let me jump into the first one. We kind of collaborated on a few questions here. So sorry if it feels a little bit premeditated.
No, it's fine.
The first question is, how are you seeing AI change the way that researchers and designers work in the day-to-day within Lloyds Bank?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and we don't have to go through questions like one by one. Like I'm definitely also just keen to have a conversation. But yeah, I think that's just thinking about how I can really contribute to this conversation. And if anyone's got any follow-up questions, let me know. But I think so some of the things that I've done and the things that I've been leading recently is AI adoption. So across research, but also design within Lloyds Banking Group. So I came together with a couple of other researchers in my team, and we built something called AI Club. So that is AI in research. So that's something like a community we built for the 90 plus researchers that we have just within design. I think we're a team of around 500 designers. And what we created was like this safe space to start to experiment with AI tools. In our work specifically, we use Copilot day to day, and we have other tools available through third parties as well, like other research tools, like we use Maze and other tools for research. But in terms of our internal work, I think it was very important that we initially, have all been told to use these tools, but no one necessarily knows how to go about it. And I think doing a bit of like a baseline study, we realized that it's not that people don't know how to use the tool itself. It's not that they don't feel confident in using Copilot and other tools. It's that they don't feel confident in knowing whether or not they can trust the outputs and they can stand behind it. But we have like a fig jam, basically. We created with like a community lobby page talking about what AI Club is, what it's not. We've developed, I guess, the principles, and then we're running practice sessions on a monthly basis. I started doing the same thing with the wider design team and the leadership team, where we're focusing on the work that we are doing that needs assistance. So for me, it's not about speeding up the work. That's not what's interesting. It's what are the moments where we spend like a lot of effort in terms of thinking, like cognitive heavy, loaded. How can we use AI to help us work through messy problems, thinking about different directions that we can explore. How can we be creative in how we can use it across not just the research workflow, but the work that we do day to day, the admin stuff. And yeah, just try to move it away from things that focuses, I think, a bit more on speed, but how it can start to help us actually think in different ways. And for me, that's a conversation that seems like less focused on tools and more about the way that we go about using them. So I think that is the difference. I think, yes, we initially had a conversation about speeding up work, but now we're starting to talk a lot more about what does that free up. You know, that 20%, 50% that we talk about saving, that give us 20 to 50% more time to actually start to do the work that matters to us. And I think where we obviously, that's about as designers being creative, it's about the judgment that we need to apply in using AI, but also in deciding what matters, what are the right problems that we need to focus on, and obviously evaluating the tools that we're using. So AI is really good at generating outputs, but we help decide like where it should be used in the first place.
You made me think about it there in a way of speeding things up and being able to do more. So it's almost like there's almost like two sides of the coin, right? And I think from my side, it's all about doing more with like the 3 or 4 of us who usually work on projects. Do you find the focus is on helping you do things faster and becoming more efficient, or it's opening up more and more services and things that you can create and explore because of these new tools, or a bit of both parts?
Yeah, no, I think both. I think the second one, that's what we're starting to see a lot more of. I think we're starting to be able to prove the value to the business also in what it enables us to do instead. So just to give you an example, so I've worked with some of the researchers on my team. You know, usually we do, let's just say, you do like a 6-week study, like quite traditional research project. You spend like maybe a week writing up the report at the very end. So I think AI is really helpful in like those early stages in terms of thinking, how could we think about these things differently? Obviously, there's basic things like writing up discussions guides and whatever. But when it comes to writing up the report and producing like the outputs, I've worked with some of the researchers on using AI in that process to try to think about, instead of creating that one report, how can we create multiple different reports tailored to different audiences using AI to try and act as like a product, try and act as like designers, and what are the key messages we need to land? How might we want to restructure the way that we tell the story? And I think AI has been really helpful in helping us think differently in that sense. I found that there's still a lot of work to do culturally. I feel like right now we're working a lot with people needing permission to be like, is it actually okay to use AI this way? But I think that's a good example of writing up a report faster, being able to share recommendations and move on to take an action in a lot sooner. But at the same time, we are able to also produce lots of different outputs that actually land a lot better with our stakeholders and that are tailored to all of the different audiences. So that's just one example where I feel like it's actually doing a bit of both.
Awesome. If anyone has a question, has anyone got the hand up?
I do. I do. So, hi Annette. Hi everyone. You spoke of Copilot, which I think it's GitHub's, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Is that an agentic, or it's more like a chatbot? Because I've been experimenting myself with tools like RMIT or OpenClaw, which I can self-host or just utilize the API. And through my use, it's more about memory, which I don't know if those tools have something like that, host memory, where I can create like a second brain and it can recall everything I tell it.
Yeah.
Or even give it a personality.
Yeah. No. So we got all of that. Like we are increasingly being in like I think I read I did a bit of background reading yesterday, and I think it said that I think 97% of our employees at the moment are using AI on a daily basis. We have access to different tools depending on our roles, and we have innovation teams also experimenting with lots of new tools that maybe we don't have access to as researchers on a day-to-day basis. Copilot, there's different ways that is being integrated into the business, but we have like full access to the Microsoft 365 Copilot license, which means that, you know, we are starting now, like yesterday, actually. I'm another example. We're working through a lab strategy at the moment, and obviously using research to inform that in terms of the direction we want to take. So I've created my own agent, just basically pulling in all of the research. I can connect it to anything that is work related, anything that's shared like internally or saved internally. I can use a web version as well, but it's all safely stored. And I can also, with agents, you know, basically create a knowledge base and ask it specifically to only pull from that. And that will obviously reduce things like hallucinations and other things, so that I know that when I talk to it, it's only referring to the work that we have done in that space. And I feel like that also allows me to trust it a lot more and move quicker.
And you feel the trusting part is quite a big scenario everywhere, right? Because for myself, I kind of struggle keeping like ChatGPT, Claude, all in the same space. But once one comes to having my own, kind of trust it more because it's offline, it's running on my own terms, on my own model. I don't know if
yeah, but see, that makes a difference. Like the more you feel like in control in terms of the kind of the way that you use prompts, you know, the criteria. I think it's about being very specific and limiting it in terms of the type of task that it will be able to do for you. But I think trust is a massive thing. And for me, I think at the end of the day, it's whether or not you feel like you can stand behind those outputs, and whether or not you can say that, you know, I'm happy to put my name against this. And I think that is what's currently, and I feel still very much left to the individual person to figure out. It's also partly due to lack of standards and guidelines and knowing what good looks like. Plus, it requires a lot of experience. So for anyone who hasn't got that years of experience of doing the job without using AI, it might be a little bit harder to know what good looks like. And that's probably like my biggest worry at the moment, but why it's important to have these conversations as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Salma's got his hand up. If I can just pass it over.
Yeah, sure.
Salma, do you want to ask the question?
Yeah, I have a very simple and quick question to Anette. So I just want to understand, if it is not about the tool, how do you guys train someone or, you know, communicate within the organization on how to use it, rather than just giving them just a Copilot and login? Just like Gabriel saying, we have like he makes it hard for him to, you know, manage or handle multiple spaces, ChatGPT, cloud, and other AI tools. So how do you handle that kind of mindset within the organization on how to use it?
Yeah, no, really good question. I think that there's a lot of things happening, you know, outside of research and outside of the work that I do. We have, as I mentioned, we're experimenting with lots of different tools. We have lots of training internally, but I think for me personally, just to try and ground it a bit in my own experience, I think it's really important to try and ground it in the actual work that we do. So talking about using AI tools like Copilot and what that looks like, you know, even though that training I think is really important, and we need to upskill ourselves to try and then bring that back to an example of, this is actually a piece of research that you were working on last week. This is how you went about it. What would you do in a situation using Copilot? Like, what are the type of questions you would ask it? What is the response it's giving you? How are you going to challenge it? And just, so try and bring up real examples of work. And that's where we use things like AI Club, as I mentioned before, and the like AI practice sessions in general. So it's just trying to just have fun, experiment, and make it feel like that's safe. It's okay to get it wrong. You don't have to be experienced. You don't have to be technical. And I think that's the way to bring everyone along that journey. Because handing over a list of tools and expecting people to just figure it out is, I think it's time and time again, we know that doesn't work. It's more of it's becoming, I think, and increasingly I'm seeing that in conversations on LinkedIn, it's becoming more a cultural problem and not a technical problem.
Going to jump in. I see a few people's got their hands up. Thanks everyone for everything so far. If you don't mind, I'm just conscious of the time, just so we can mix the call up a tiny bit. I'm going to jump across to Todd, and Todd could tell us a little bit about what he's doing at Wio Bank, and then while we go through a few more chats and conversations, feel free to link back to Annette to ask any questions. So Todd, over to you. Do you want to tell us about what you're getting up to at Wio and how it's been helping you and how you're learning and doing, etc.?
Nice one. Yeah, cheers, Gareth. It's been pretty phenomenal, to be honest with you. So we do have, you know, our company has always been, you know, its culture is to kind of think a little bit differently, and to harness, you know, new technologies and to experiment, you know, as fast as possible with these new technologies. So that's always been in our sort of DNA. But it's so it's, you know, it is kind of top down, but it's been so phenomenal to see the bottom up approach to using this new technology. You know, we've seen people dabbling in Claude Code, you know, different people from around the business, whether they're from DX or, you know, maybe the legal team, you know, or people from different departments that truly understand the business, the customer, the potential issues and the little kind of problems that we need to fix within the business, building prototypes, you know, not just kind of front end, but thinking about back end, thinking about operations, building these prototypes and then kind of presenting this and then saying, hey, like, look at this idea that I've kind of come up with, like, look at the problem that it's potentially going to fix. And the business going, wow, you know, this is pretty insane that it doesn't come from product or design, you know, or engineering, you know, traditionally. These ideas are now coming from the wider business. You know, I think we're at about 1,000 people in the business, and it's been amazing to see how quickly people have started using these tools. So yeah, we're internally on the design and product team, we're using Claude Code heavily to kind of condense our like ideation. So discovery sessions still stand. You know, we're still there thinking about the problem, but we can now rapidly, you know, prototype 100 ideas, you know, whereas it would have taken the same time to kind of come up with one. So we get the luxury of saying, okay, we can throw away these 99 ideas, we'll keep this one, and we kind of, you know, can kind of further iterate. So yeah, it's been amazing. I'd say Claude Code is the one tool that we're really, really excited about. And yeah, Fable 5 is back today, right? So let's see where that goes.
We've dabbled a little bit in Claude, but I struggle to. The reason why I'm interested in, well, you know, what you guys are using it for is because I struggle to figure out what I can actually use it to help my mind think of what I need, if that makes sense. Because kind of everything I do and kind of create, I kind of just do with us, and we kind of almost got all the tools we need in our own hands and what we already use. And yes, there's extra stuff that we use, but I mean, Oscar's on the call, and he can say a couple of things in a moment. But some of the gang in Seoul, they're doing like very, very what I would call like experimental usage, and unfortunately, Ines has not been able to join us, but she's using Claude to kind of track any incorrections in her design systems, and Claude's like fixing it and that kind of thing. So my mind didn't even imagine using it for that, you know. So it's interesting how other people are using it. Tablet has got his hand up, so I'll hand it over.
Gareth. All right, Todd, how you doing? Thanks for that.
Hey, Tabs. Long
time indeed, man. Just a quick one. I've dabbled in Claude Code as well. So I use Claude Code to work on a design system to build some screens. I thought it was okay. I ended up using it just to create high fidelity HTML wireframes for me instead, based on the input of significant factors and personas and so on. But what I'm curious about, just you mentioned Fable 5 is back out today, which I noticed as well. So what is the difference then in Claude Code? Like, what model are you using, and what is the difference between Sonnet, Opus, Fable? When you do you get better quality, or is it faster? Does it go deeper? Like, how does it, and what model do you use?
Yeah, good question. Just a caveat. So we're obviously a regulated financial institution. We don't vibe code things into existence. We're not quite there yet. We're very much using it in a, you know, safe sort of sandbox, you know, playground environment. In terms of models, oh man, it changes all the time, and even I can't keep up, right? I think the way I kind of look at it, and I'm not an expert, like I never claim to be an expert in using this. I'm just having a lot of fun, you know, with what we're doing at the moment. Is that for the smaller, you know, sort of tasks, I'll kind of notch that down a little. You know, I think of this in a very, very simple way. For the larger, bigger plans, I'll use a higher model. But you'll have guys out there, I see them on X, that have really kind of worked this out, when to use what models and when to not, and how to kind of, maintain their token, sort of usage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not gonna, say that I'm an expert in this area, but yeah, but Fable 5 was incredible, to be honest with you. When it came out for that very short period of time, I kind of got really excited about it. I went away, and I'm not a super technical guy. I'm a designer at heart, UI designer, visual person, and with probably about 5%, sort of technically minded. And a kind of penny dropped for me when, in a weekend, I was able to code an entire iOS app, almost production ready iOS app in a weekend. And yeah, I think just the most fascinating thing for me is seeing that we kind of believe that the traditional design, product engineering teams are not really going to exist in the way that we see them today. There's this sort of whole idea of the product builder. And I think that product builder will be a mold of different skill sets. But yeah, I know I'm going off on a little tangent here, but I think, yeah, like smart people using this technology can achieve amazing things. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, nice one.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Oh, good to hear your voice anyway.
Yeah, you too, man. By the way, Tabriz is he's always coming with customer problems every single week. So we'll try to fix all your feedback, Tabriz.
Yeah,
we'll get right to it. We've got a Tabriz backlog actually in our backlog. Curiosity.
I mean, I love Wio. I love it, as you know. But there's a couple of teeny wee things. It's all about getting
We'll get around to it.
Have you got rid of that black X, that close button that you can't see?
Yeah. Yeah, that's on the customer pop-ups, right?
I'm gonna get a T-shirt made with a black square on it and just a little black cross, and I'm gonna give it to you when I see you. Brenton's got his hand up. Brenton, over to you, big man. You got a question?
Go on, Baz.
I do have a question. Todd, love to see your face again.
You too, mate. You too.
Obviously, I think both of us, AI has been running through the product, through the process, through the internal tools, through ideas, through the whole entire process to kind of production. But I'm interested to hear from you, when has AI not worked? Or when is it the actual critical point where you're like, you can F AI off for this task? Where are those areas?
Yeah, it's a great question. So look, we're really trying to lock our design systems down and have a certain coverage, so we can pull real components through into the real kind of thing, real code base. And when we started, it was super messy. And I think that was because we didn't have proper systems locked down. I think where it's not working, I kind of see this in maybe two areas. There's like one, the sort of ideation conceptual stage, and then there's two, like building this kind of production ready thing. I think we're not quite there yet with the real production ready thing. I know that you're maybe a little bit further down the road than us. I know we spoke recently, and you've got some good ideas into how you've done that. I think what's helped us though is to create sort of systems internally. You saw Google Stitch created the MD file, right? That was a thing for a little while, and then we kind of moved on into something a little bit more advanced. So where it's not worked is kind of unleashing the technology on the whole team and allowing them to kind of prototype and come up with ideas. It's fantastic on one hand, but on the other hand, it's liable to a lot of kind of slop, a lot of hallucination. It's not reading components properly. So I think I think where it struggles is when you don't have a real robust system in place. That's when it's gonna slip up. I'm guessing you've experienced something similar, right?
Yeah, I mean, during this call, I've received 5 prototypes. So that's just the idea. But yeah, I think for us, where it hasn't worked, and just to kind of go off what you're saying, is it's worked well with consolidating data and making the data available to the designer, right? That's been great. But it's when people have started getting, I don't want to say lazy, but okay, finish next task, and they kind of hand it on and expect the next person to figure out what they're actually meaning, right? Because they haven't put the thought to explain themselves, and you get it back to them, and they're like, "Oh, no, hang on a minute, that's not what I meant." So that kind of fast iteration, fast thinking, and then less context or knowledge from that person creating it, they're just kind of shipping it down the conveyor belt, so to speak. So for us, that's been everything else has been pretty spot on, but that's probably the sticking point for us at the moment.
Yeah. Brenton, you mentioned that the sort of handoff there, and how are your teams positioned around this technology? Do you still have traditional product design, data, engineering, or are you sort of thinking about how you reposition people around this technology?
We're repositioning completely, in a sense. Like, our app backend is now an agentic backend, which can serve components and frames depending on the user's journey and where they're coming into. So that means the journey builder, which we built with AI, can be connected, like your Salesforce CRM, to create the different logic in which components to serve. So the idea of a designer has to design a screen. Once the design system's ready and it's being managed, a product designer can start creating scenarios. So it's been quite good. And obviously how UX is thinking about different elements coming together and relationships, that marries with the data objects. And the data people have been listening a lot more to UX designers on how different elements of the experience needs to link up in relationships for it. So very blurred lines for us.
Just one more question, G-Man, if you don't mind, to Brenton. You mentioned around your product teams and able to use this to build flows, sort of layouts. When you need to push the boundary, get creative, like, what do you do? Do you break away from Claude Code or the AI, and you sort of go back onto kind of pen and paper, or are you creating new things? Is Claude Code be able to create new components?
Not so much creating same components, it's detecting the same patterns and the same templates. So we define the templates, right? Those templates are going to have the same interaction patterns throughout the app. So it does have some guardrails in that built in. If we needed to do a new platform, so a website or a new app, we would start that from scratch from a template and interaction level, and then build upon that with AI. But it would still be guardrailed or be copying another app, so to speak. If we got it to get it from the base set go, you kind of need those templates and guardrails to then further develop with AI.
I'm going to jump it across to Jimmy to keep mixing it up a little bit. So yeah, as I kind of touched on, Jimmy runs and co-founded a motion agency, and I was originally met Jimmy through listening to a podcast he did where he was talking about the new Canva motion tool, which isn't really AI, but kind of got interested in new tools for motion through that conversation. But then me and Jimmy had a little chat, and he was explaining that actually he uses AI for other things. So yeah, Jimmy, over to you.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I want to preface first and just say everything that our studio is all about craft. And to me, that is innately human. So ours is a small team, both across the creative team and what I do. It's all about looking at how can we speed up the mundane, the repetitive, the more admin tasks. So I can talk a little bit loosely about how our creative teams are using it, though I'm a little bit more removed from that, sitting on the side that I'm on. But I think even when I talk about craft, me not being on the creative side, for me, it's all about building relationships. And to me, that's all about a human approach, human touch, and forming real bonds. So again, what I really try and do is just kind of automate the stuff that takes my time away from being able to do that and build those relationships. So I guess just to give you a bit of a brief overview, my main kind of like rock and roll is Claude. I'm like all in on Claude co-work. The integrations are just like nuts now, like the things that we've been able to pull together and tie together and get talking to one another has been game changing. So I suppose the one that I'll kick off and just tell you a little bit about is I set up a weekday briefing every morning. So Claude's connected into our Slack, it's connected into my emails, it's connected into my calendar, it's connected into our HubSpot, it's connected into pretty much every asset of our business that is kind of looking at what we've got coming up and what we're doing. And every day I get a clear outline brief that summarizes my important tasks for the day. From HubSpot, it looks at my emails, any outstanding emails that I haven't replied to, anything in Slack that hasn't been actioned, etc. And I get this lovely kind of like cleanly delivered brief every single day that just gives me a bit of heads up of like, what are my focuses for today? What are the most important items that I need to be looking at? And then another thing that I've kind of tied in it with it as well is, so we built out custom tone of voice guidances for each member of the team. So for those emails, for example, that might be outstanding, it will draft copy using the tone of voice guidance from me, which again, I'm not about just letting AI kind of run and automate itself. So that's all kind of to be proofed and approved by me before any of that goes off. And there's certainly still a lot of tinkering that goes into that. But that's one of my kind of like favorite things that I have running with it now. It's just really, I'm quite ADHD and I'm a little bit messy and unorganized. So having something that can give me clear guidance each day on like where I'm heading is super, super, super useful. And again, as I mentioned in the intro, we are a small team. So there's 5 of us, 6 of us now, sorry. And we're competing with a lot of giants in the industry, but it seems that the big brands are really liking to work with smaller studios now. So how can we free up those things that typically would kind of slow down a smaller business, you know, bigger teams who have got, say, for example, like massive legal teams. Okay, so what can we set up to just quickly proof over our SOW documents that we're sending out, check for any flags or uncertainties if we're getting contracts from clients, because we don't have a legal team on hand that can go and sift through all that, right? So for us, it's really all about that. And actually just coming back, Gareth mentioned about the podcast that I run. So I launched a podcast last year, which if you're into design, we talk with a lot of leading designers from across branding mainly. We've had people like Brian Collins, for example, Lisa Smith, some really amazing guests. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of work and a lot of time that goes into doing that, especially when you're running it solo. So I've also got another one that I've got set up is like a podcast production assistant. And the way that I run that is I'll have like a pre-screening call with my guests. I'll record it into Granola. I've got a template that I set up manually myself. And now I get Claude to look at the notes, look at the talking points that I've had with this person on a call. And it will then do the research and create me kind of the script to follow up. And then when I've finished, I can plumb the transcript in and I can get it to feed me out YouTube, SEO, optimized titles, descriptions, all the rest of it. So again, just having that kind of, I suppose I use it more so like an assistant, you know, just helping me get more done, whilst then freeing up more time for me to focus on the stuff that really requires the human touch and the human connection. And then just very briefly to touch on what the creative teams do. I know, for example, coming back to that kind of administrative thing, a lot of the time we might need to deliver working files to a client. So our team have built scripts that will just package everything up, neating everything up, because we'll often work with different talent as well, freelancers, and they don't always kind of keep their After Effects files quite so nice and tidy. So we've got automations around that as well, just to neaten everything up, make sure that we can cleanly and quickly deliver full deliverables over to clients as well. So yeah, it's all still about the human touch. It's all still about the human craft, both on my side and the creative teams. It's just looking at how can we kind of compete with these larger businesses now that we've got the power of an assistant that can help kind of like speed up all of that stuff. So that's a very brief overview, but some of my favorite usages of it at the minute.
Yeah, Annette's got a hand up. Annette, off to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. That was really interesting. I'd like so many different questions came up as you were talking. So I'm just trying to think back to what was my first question. Yes. So you talked about using co-work to, you know, automate tasks for you. So I'm just wondering, because one of the things that I've also seen, and I think I talked about a little bit earlier in terms of how it's not just about saving time, it's like creating different types of work. And I feel like in certain areas, like you want to save time doing admin stuff, but have you found that in order to make this work, you actually need to do more admin as well? Because I found that for me, in order for it to really work with some of the things I need to do on a regular basis, I also need to start to think a little bit differently about how I document things so that it's accessible and retrievable in a way that makes it a lot easier for the agent to read and act on. Otherwise, if it's all in my head, obviously it will never be available to AI. And
yeah, totally. Like, there's definitely a lot of upfront work. Annoyingly, we were looking at switching over to a team plan for Claude, and then I realized I was going to lose absolutely everything. So I was like, no, we're not doing that. We can all do our individual ones. But I think with anything operations focused, right, there's always a time in investment at the start, right? And I don't think it's any different with AI. There's definitely a lot of upfront time. It's looking at, and I think that's something that as a small business, we have to discuss internally. It's like, okay, right, is it worth, if this is going to take me X amount of time, actually, how much time is it really going to save us? Is it worth me investing the time in it? So I think, again, you get the same with like SOPs and creating all that kind of stuff. But I think that, we just try and look for our own pain points, really. What are we finding ourselves doing a lot? What are we finding repetitive? What are we finding really time consuming? And we'll kind of keep a track of those. And then each week we'll kind of look at those and assess and be like, right, what could we build as a solution here? But to your question, yeah, absolutely, definitely can be time consuming. It's about weighing out that balance, I suppose, and the kind of long-term game from that.
Thank you. Can I ask a second question? It just came up at the end. So when you're talking about like doing creative work that requires like human touch, and it sounds like, for parts of the work you want that to remain largely, if not solely, human. Working with freelancers and stuff on projects, do you have like a process or any criteria in place in how you evaluate their work, or in terms of their way of using AI? Do you have any guidelines or anything in place?
No, not explicitly state. There's certain projects. So, for example, like the one we're working on with Google right now, we've got quite a bit of free reign with being able to use tools because it is around this kind of world, the film that we're working on. But no, I mean, motion designers wise, like we've got a tight knit community, so we tend to be typically bringing in the same people. But we know what their workflows are like. And again, we'll kind of host sessions with them too, just to share working practices amongst the team and amongst the people that we work with. And I think while AI has definitely like shook the creative industry and definitely scared a lot of people over the last few years, I'm not being naive in saying this, but right now, I know that this will change, but right now motion design is something that hasn't really been hit by it quite so much. It was definitely more I was in more traditional animation, frame by frame character, and that's obviously been kind of very much rocked with the, being able to make illustrations and then kind of like rig them quickly with AI, and then that's definitely been impacted. But I think the motion graphics side of things, because it's so technical and precise and graphic design focused, there are a few tools out there that we're playing around with. Again, this is the other side of the team that know more about this. I can't remember the name of the one that we've been playing around with, but you can't do it well with them at the minute. But again, we're also not naive to the fact that will likely change. So we just try and share best practices, and I think that's one of the things I love most about being able to work with external talent, is we get to learn a hell of a lot. It's also why I do the podcast as well, right? Like I try and bring on people that I find interesting to learn from them. That's kind of the main, I guess it started as a marketing tool, but it's now become this like learning resource for ourselves as a studio now. So yeah, that's sorry, a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, I hope that answers your question.
I'm going to jump in, guys. We've got a few people with their hands up. Sorry. Mahmood, do you want to ask a question? And you've been waiting patiently. Over to you.
Yeah, hey guys, thank you for this insights. My question to Jimmy is about motion design. I mean, myself has a smaller studio in Dubai, and as you said, like it's really easier for us to automate all of this operation stuff and admin work with AI. But along the creative side, as you said, like you have been trying a bit, as actually the other part of the team trying to make some motion graphics with AI, and it's not really doing a great work. And even myself, I tried many times, and still I can't see the AI can do like a SaaS video with UI and text animations and all of this stuff, So like, how many clients actually saw on social media like this ads like Hicksfield trying to promote that you can do a SaaS video with just like a click of a button, and they are expecting this to happen, and they are kind of came back to reality and find out this is not happening with AI, and I kind of feel like it's a bit far to be achieved. What do you think about this?
I think it's interesting, right? I think that AI has painted this picture that everything should be cheap and fast. But what I've seen, we're very lucky to kind of work with these top end clients. And even these clients, like, you look at Claude, for example, or you look at ChatGPT, all of their marketing campaigns are human shot videography, human shot photography, clean motion graphics. They aren't using it themselves. It's not there yet, right? So we're very fortunate, I suppose, to work with this caliber of client that have the budget, and they would rather spend that budget to have good quality craft. I've always just talked about this kind of this like nether zone of the budget, right? And I've noticed this across both studios that I've worked at, where you've got the low end of the scale, often the worst clients that expect the most and have the most revisions and expect you. They're the ones that are asking about AI. How can we make this cheaper? How can we? They're the ones asking those questions. And then there's a kind of mid ground that doesn't really exist because you're too expensive for those clients and you're not expensive enough for the kind of top tier of clients. So you kind of jump into this new realm. So we're kind of fortunate to be sat on that side of things. So we don't really kind of like deal with clients that are expecting that. They just want to work with a team that produce a good quality output. So we don't really battle too much now with clients asking us to use AI or how we're using it.
And kind of from the creative side, you don't actually see it happening like the AI can make this, as you said, like sophisticated graphic design with some motion graphics. I can see like motion graphics integrated in live action footages and all of this visual effect stuff going on. This is kind of thing AI already can build very easy right now. But I think for the detailed information or the infographics part of the motion graphics is not there yet.
Yeah, I agree. And there's also, I want to pull, there's a key word that you said there, and it's integration, right? I think that the best studios will certainly be using it in some capacity and maybe quite heavily, but they aren't going to be input outputs. Like the input output is never going to create good design because it's trained on, in my opinion, mediocre design. It's been trained on some good design as well, but it's just replicating. It's not creating anything new, right? So that word that you say, integration, the studios that look on how can we integrate it, instead of just feeding a prompt and expecting a good video out, how can we use it in these like unique ways that we're going to start crafting something that is new, that is different, that's cutting edge. I always look to Studio Dumbbell. They're one of my favorite motion design studios, and had them on the podcast actually and kind of talked about the way that they were vibe coding platforms to create code-led motion graphics. And again, it's still this human input, it's still human followed through. It's not an input output, expect it to be good. It's still very much kind of looked over the entire process by a human, but they're using it in innovative ways to make stuff that they couldn't previously do. So I see that as the future of it. I think that I'd be naive to say that motion graphics isn't going to get impacted by AI, or things aren't going to be able to be created, but I think ultimately the studios that are going to stand out and prosper are going to be the ones that are looking at how they can use it in new, innovative ways. And that's why I'm really, really close on like Cavalry. We're really tight with the Cavalry lot, because whilst it's not like AI, they're using new innovative solutions, right? A lot of data-led kind of inputs to impact motion. And yeah, I think it's all just about innovation. And I think that we're in this era now where innovation is just going to, but I mean, we're already seeing it happen, right? That it's just going to boom more, and it's definitely going to happen in motion graphics.
Cool, thank you.
I'm going to jump in, guys. I see a few more people's got their hands up. Tabs, do you want to ask a real quick question? I'm also just going to really quickly show some stuff that we do for Kling. I feel like it's really, really straightforward compared to some of the more technical things that's being discussed. But Tabs, quickly over to you.
Yeah, it's a kind of open question for the panel, really. Maybe Brenton as well, because you're quite so involved in it. But it's a bit like, how do you decide what AI workflow you use? You know, so it's sort of like ChatGPT came out, people used it to write an email for me. There's that. And then there's all the way up to like, you know, the design system, integrate that with Claude so that it can build the screens for me. And then there's like, I came on as a designer because I want to design. So I don't want something to design something for me, but I know that it can accelerate my design. So tricky question, but it's a bit like, how do you decide what workflow that you're going to commit to? And the commitment part's quite interesting because the goalposts are changing every 3-4 weeks. So are you going to commit to something that might not be working in a while? Do you know what I mean? Or it might evolve. So yeah, that's just going through my head.
I do have a thought on this, if you don't mind me just jumping on this one. I think controversially, just don't commit. I think right now, particularly for small studios, like people like myself, I'm watching, and I've got friends that work for the big holding groups, and they're spending months and months and months and months building their own internal AI tools, right? Because they can't get clearance, they can't get green lights on using the tools that are out there. They're doing this for months, and by the time they've finished, it's out of date. It's out of date. I think the key, for me personally, I'll adopt and I'll stick to whatever's working at the time, but I'm never going to say this is it, because it's moving too quick. The landscape is shifting far too fast to marry into a tool. And I think that the people that are going to grow the most with AI are going to be the ones that are like, oh shit, and the updates just come out for Chat, because I stopped using ChatGPT because Claude's killing it now. But if Chat put an update out that suddenly make Claude redundant, or it can do the use cases that I'm using it for better, I'll switch in a heartbeat and I'll set it all up again. I think that's really, for me anyway, I think adaptability and flexibility is super important.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, even though we obviously is slightly more restricted, you know, as a bank, I would say that we're not at a place where we've committed. I feel like even though we are starting to see people across design and across the business using it in in more regular ways, and we're getting to a place now where we are developing like best practice guardrails, principles for how to use it. I think it's still very much about experimenting. And as I was mentioning before, I'm thinking a lot of AI also, how it can be my, not just assistant, but also my thinking partner in a lot of the work that I do, how it can help me think differently, structure my thinking, or simplifying the way that I communicate. Or I just feel that it's, for me, I'm gaining a lot from just still trying out different things and letting everyone know that that's what we ask of them.
I will just add to that, for us in particular, because we're healthcare, we're also heavily regulated. The one thing we've done, and I think to Breeze, you said about workflows, we've designed our workflows, but if we switch those workflows to another model, it would still have the same context. And that's what our ultimate goal is, to be agnostic to any of the AI models that we can swap in and out, but our workflows stay the same because that's true to the individual user. And Annette talked about before the bar of quality. You've set that bar of quality. You've got the steps involved to that bar of quality. If you swapped out another model, it should be following that. And like Gabrielle was kind of saying before, he's going more local, and I think that's the goal. Context local, swap out any model that you need to, and that's how you kind of solve for that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I can see Oscar's got his hand up, and Oscar's in Seoul with me, so I'm going to pass it over to my Seoul buddy. We went to a drum and bass night about 4 weeks ago, and he's a top dancer. He was right at the front, and I was at the back being a miserable old man, but it was a great night. Anyway, Oscar, question over to you.
No, that was brilliant. I just appreciate the diversity of the panelists here. You know, both design researchers, motion designers, really in the thick of it with different challenges. And something I'll just say that has bothered me about AI from the start is that idea that it is deterministic. Given one input, you always get the same output. Not a chance, right? And we all have different workflows and processes. And something I've tried, right, is to define pipelines where in each stage of, let's say, going from an article to a couple of, let's say, TikTok shorts based on the article, to have little agents in that pipeline doing my work according to my vision. And I just wanted to hear kind of the panelists' thoughts on saving your processes, whether that be in markdown documents as sort of reusable instructions. And then, you know, like Jimmy just said, oh, ChatGPT is great now, let's switch. Are you capturing kind of your workflows, your little taste, you know, the differentiating secret ingredients? How do you approach it?
I can maybe jump in and speak a little bit to that, Oscar. Thanks for the question. Something that we've been ruminating over a lot, like how do we capture our principles, our standards, you know, our taste, as you mentioned. One thing we did, obviously, design seems to have been kind of democratized, you know, throughout the business at the moment. So everyone can design something. Doesn't necessarily mean it's good design. So we went about and thought to ourselves, how do we build a sort of, you know, central kind of brain, if you like, that is kind of like design and sort of product principles. It started off as markdown files, but we pumped it with references, with mood boards. We kind of taught these models, you know, our opinion of good design based on the designs that we've already built with it. It's become a bit of a huge monster. It's hard for someone, you know, to kind of get that, reference it, look at every single markdown file and document, and then, you know, move that forward without absolutely burning your token allowance. But we found that it really works. And after every session that we have, you know, I'll create an ideation for a new flow or whatever that may be. Once we get to a really good point in, you know, saying, okay, this is what good looks like. We're not all the way there yet, but we're very close. we'll then ask it to, okay, memorize this. You know, these are the things that are working. These are the things that are not. So we're calling that, you know, the turd path, right? These are the things that you don't do going forward. So we've done that. We've put it on our internal GitHub. We're kind of managing it, you know, like a project in itself by building branches, then merging that back into the main. And then we can have our product builders, you know, pull this down. They have a real base kind of set of foundations, principles, guidelines, and they were able to prototype and, you know, rapidly prototype and come up with ideas like super fast. You know, all kind of internally at the conceptual stage. We found that works.
The keeper of the crypt, a librarian that knows all your secrets, but can also do some magic. That's really cool.
Yeah.
What about Jimmy or Annette? Have you been kind of trying to save your taste, so to speak?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I've maybe not in as deliberate, but I like personally, like I'm doing lots to try and I think like I have a library just of prompts of what I sound like, and you know, anytime I found a lot of value in using tools like Copilot, it's been because of me arguing with it, and we're getting to a point where I then ask it to do a summary of the conversations we've had and how we can turn that into a prompt so we can get to that point quicker next time we have a conversation, and then I just constantly like build on that. But I would say for research specifically, you know, there's lots of things happening now with digital twins and synthetic users. And it feels to me that that's not far away from what you're also talking about. We are trying to do the exact same thing. So I think there's a bit of like, we have to be a bit careful in terms of how we're using it. But doing, and I know, you know, lots of businesses are already doing research with synthetic users or having AI moderating interviews. And so that's also obviously, I feel like slightly similar in terms of how to make it look and seem and sound exactly like what you want it to. We know so much about who our customers are, but we would never, you know, not talk to real customers. I think we're definitely not at that place, and I can't see that ever really happening, like with new original.
Yeah, it's the fun part.
You know, anything that's not already represented in the data. And the fact that I think a lot of the time, you know, AI will always favor what's been repeated the most. So anything that might stand out, that might to us be a lot more important, I think that's really hard to capture unless you are heavily involved in that process. I think similarly, like sorry, I'm going off a tangent here, but I used to work in SEO, and getting to the top on Google used to be a very simple task. You could add like a white text and white background, and then if you use the word enough times, you know, the algorithm will rate you highest. And then it became a lot more complicated, and it became about using intent and stuff. And with AI and thinking about, you know, algorithms, you still need to create rules. You still need to know what good looks like and how these things change, you know, how you're gonna constantly keep that knowledge base updated.
I'm going to jump in. Sense. Gabriel's got his hand up, but just before I pass it over to Gabriel, what I liked what Mahmood said, which sent me off on the thought, was that AI can do advanced graphic design, and it made me laugh because I would actually argue not many humans can do advanced graphic design anymore. I personally find it really hard to find really good graphic designers now. And you know, me and Gabriel work together. He's more of a multimedia designer, but when it comes to like crafting typography and having that perfect craft and that message and that high standard of work, you know, if we struggle to do it en masse, then I don't know how a bot is going to struggle to do it. There's a lot of those kind of like things going around on social media now, which is like, hey, if you see a business that's got a flyer that looks like this, then don't use that business. And it's becoming more evident that people are tiring of this kind of classic AI look. I think we're wising up to it. And another word that comes along a lot now is taste, and the fact that taste is becoming the defining feature. We've always had a duty to know what great looks like. That's why we do the job we do, right? I'm going to take like literally 2 minutes to show you what we've been using AI for. And what's really interesting that's happened recently on Kling, I'll just give you one good example, and I'll pull actually the case study that we've applied this work to. Until recently, Kling didn't do a good job at all of replicating text. So if it would zoom or twist, it basically couldn't render the text, but it's changed how it does that now. So if you zoom into, for example, this screen here, it does a really good job of changing the text and kind of flipping it around. And that's been like a huge difference to allow us to kind of use Kling to do more with the visuals that we create. Obviously, everything you see here is the project. It's the mock-ups that have been used, but Kling adds that extra layer on to bring it to life so that we can essentially be more expressive in the case studies that we use. Probably about 20% of these individual items have AI applied in some way, but the rest of it is all just, you know, blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, Gabriel will tell you how long we spent on this particular piece of motion there to kind of get that precise, perfect version of what it can be. And I think that's kind of what we all have a duty to do when we work on projects, right? Is to deliver the very best for our client. I think someone's got their hand up there. Todd, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it wasn't a question. It was just it's kind of prompted me to think, have you used Weavy yet? Which is a whole bunch of different models in sort of one, you know, infinite canvas. Jimmy, have you used it?
That was the one I was trying to think of earlier that our design team have been using. Yeah.
It's brilliant.
There's Flora. Flora, I'm kind of really interested in giving it a try. I really like the look of it as well. The thing is where is it? Is it down here? I'm getting like flower shops. But I find that I watched that guy Benji, who's like one of the main kind of AI campaign producers. I think he did like the shirt for PSG. I don't know if that's like a cool thing or not a cool thing, but he does really good work. And he's using Flora to kind of link and iterate on all of the different AI service tools that he typically uses, but it all kind of does it within one environment. And he can get these really cool end results of campaign work and kind of fashion shoots and whatnot. I still feel like I don't need to kind of go to the fifth degree. I just need to take what we've got, give it that little sprinkle to make it come to life a bit more, and then we then take that back into After Effects, chop the parts together, and then it creates like these little mini moving movies. So that's kind of what we use it for.
Yeah,
Gabriel, I think you've got a quick question.
Yeah, I just have a question about prompting as well, because I found out to generate an image, it's a lot easier to use like JSON code, because it gives me a lot more freedom on how can I change things. Is that something you utilize when you're speaking to your AI?
I've got a mate that's really into JSON. He's crazy with AI in general. I prompt my prompts. I found that always works the best. I'm always just like, yo, Claude, I'm trying to do this. I want it to do X, Y, Z. Like, what's the best way to put this in? And then it will just give me it with a bunch of variables that I'll go in and change. That's normally how I approach like the more complex ones. I'll just get it to do it for me.
I'll share my screen
how
on,
that sounds
on what
like
I
from
mean.
the future.
I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
My prompts.
So
Yes,
this
yes,
is
yes.
what I mean. I'll just fit it to one of my pictures. So for example, this, I'll have it transcribed to JSON, and then I can generate the same picture, same type of environment, but change things. So a night photo will end up being a day photo, or the plate will end up being whatever I want. So
Cool.
just keep the difficulty part is people. You cannot do people well and get those characteristics, but it still does something.
I'm just checking in on time. We've got 15 minutes left officially, so I'm happy to just kind of go open floor for the last remaining 15 minutes. If anyone does need to drop early, that's all good. Anyone else got any burning questions or stuff to talk about?
I was just going to ask, I'm curious, both for people that work with clients and people that don't, like, what is the overall stance that you get from either A, your customers, or B, your business in the ethics of it? I'm going to try and steer it into a bit more of a controversial chat as we near the end. But I'm curious to know that, because that's one thing that I think the mindful use of it, right? But most of our clients we cannot like use it in any end outputs. Personally, we can use it in all of our internal stuff, but I just want to throw that out there and just find out what people's like company
Similar.
stances are with their clients.
What we find a lot is that clients will throw something over and they'll be like, hey, we've made a presentation deck. You just need to finish it off. And it's literally, you know, a 2-minute job in Claude. And I'll say to them, guys, this is not even, you know, 5% of the way forward. We can't use any of this. And yeah, we can't, we use it internally. The only thing that we have used it for is when we did that 3D engine project that I showed you. That's when Midjourney first came out, and to create 3D visuals to match a lot of the functionality of the engine, there was no visuals that you can grab that explained what that was. So Midjourney was like super helpful to create these like abstract 3D, in many ways slightly sort of unusual graphics, which kind of complemented the fact that it was this open source 3D engine where you could pretty much create anything. So it worked with that. And we image generation, we can do a few things with it, but it'll always get to the point where, you know, if it's a picture of a person and their face isn't right, or the building, the structure of the building's not accurate, it starts to show. And you see clients who do that and they don't kind of realize. Mike, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I can speak to that a lot because, first of all, I relate a lot about what Jimmy said earlier about, because we're also a small creative team, interior design and branding, and we're all about that handmade, crafted kind of approach to things, like a human-centric, right? And when it comes to clients, again, we cannot, at the moment, it's just generative state of AI is just not there. Like you just cannot present anything generated from AI as an end result to the client. Like it's just not feasible. We do use it internally as well, but to the extent, again, we work on interior, so it's very difficult to create any sort of changes on a micro level in that regard, because the way AI works is it will regenerate the entire image for you. So if you can tell it, okay, I want to change this little detail on the chair, or this detail on a silverware on a table, it'll just regenerate the entire image, and the entire space will change. So you don't have that control over those little details, and that's difficult. So when it comes to clients, we still have to kind of, okay, we compile a mood board, or we compile a atmosphere of images for the client, and then the end result will still have to come from actual real 3D renders, from actual real people making them. But for the clients, it doesn't really matter. Like they don't give a shit if it's AI or not. They just want to see the end result, right?
Yeah. I also wonder if it's like, I definitely think there's cultural differences in the approach to it. So as I can't remember if I mentioned at the start, but I live out in Portugal, and Portugal's marketing ad scene has never been massive. We've done one project here once, but we've never really worked in Portugal for any creative projects. But I am seeing so much shit AI slop advertising across the country. Like even KFC had a bus billboard that was just like, terrible AI gen. I'm seeing Superboc and Sagres doing horrible AI generated Instagram video campaigns. So I find it very interesting that it's like, I think it must vary as well, right? Like wherever you are, because I notice it a lot more here, but when I go back to the UK, I don't see that, but I see it a lot here. So I was curious to throw that question out there, because I think there are a lot of nuances.
Yeah,
what was that? Sorry?
A lot of it.
Right.
The buys became quite,
I've noticed that they were very forward about like that. I've seen a lot of creative studios that have been like pitching out there, and they're solely selling themselves on AI. And I just personally, my personal view is it just diminishes the craft of what we do when you're selling yourself on that. And I think that's where a lot of the big holding groups are going wrong, is they're just trying to sell efficiency. You know, I can't remember, was it WPP that was saying we're going to pitch 50 ideas for every single project? It's like, fuck that, don't give me 50 ideas, give me 3 good ones. And I think
I think it's a problem. It's rather not an AI problem. It's a problem where corporations look to kind of save money, right? So they would rather let 5 designers go and then spend $5 on ChatGPT and just generate a million things, and it ends up looking like shit. but they don't care because they've generated 100 things that they can just quickly produce and send out, and then that's what. Yeah,
it's gonna be an
I live in
interesting
Dubai as
shift.
well, and then I see a lot of it around. It's horrible. It's like
Yeah,
my eyes are bleeding every time I see a billboard. It's crazy.
I'll be interested to see what happens with consumer behavior, because like back to Gareth's point earlier, there's like, don't buy from these companies if you see this poster style, right? Like I think there's going to be an interesting consumer shift where it's going to be a lot of anti-AI, people avoiding businesses because of it. But yeah, just curious. It's an interesting thing to see.
I want to get that final question in. Oliver, you still want to jump in and ask it?
Yeah, sure. So let me give you a bit of a story. So I do represent WPP here. I work for VML, one of WPP's main agencies. So yeah, Jimmy, you got a very valid point there. There is a lot of slop happening, but I can only speak regionally. Actually, some of the work being created by some of the creatives is stunning, and we've had examples. I can't give specifics, but we've had examples where we've shown 2 versions of a campaign, a video specifically, to a client, and it's pretty unclear which is which to that degree. So there is some brilliant work happening, but the same with everything AI. It's shit in, shit out, really, isn't it? So as long as the creative is giving the right level of prompt and the right level of granularity and creative inspiration as well, then the outcome is pretty good. Anyway, that wasn't what my question was about, but I thought I'd add that in. So being part of WPP, I'm not sure who's aware, but we've got an AI operating system that I can't remember what the final number is now, but it's in the hundreds of millions that it's cost them to create. Now that gives us an operating system that all of the major models are incorporated. So we've got the ability to choose whichever model we want. And we're encouraged to use it at quite a high level, right? And this goes across the whole of WPP, which is what, 110,000 or something. But even just within VML, there's about 30,000 of us. And we're encouraged to use AI as much as possible. Now, certainly within my team, and I lead a team of designers and researchers and strategists, and we've got, we're building agents. So we've got the ability within this operating system to build our own agents. And so we've got multiple agents. We've got one that's just for research prep. So there's one agent, researcher, that creates discussion guides, it creates research plans, all of that documentation ahead of any kind of facilitation. And that, going back to the earlier comment, right at the beginning about usage volume versus quality, right? This certainly reduces the amount of time it takes us to go into any kind of research study. So we can have a research study planned and prepped within a couple of days, including some approvals as well in some cases, because what you're doing is you're making sure you're feeding it all the right level of objectives and who we researching with, what do we want to know, what are the business objectives we're trying to solve here. And actually we've got a research plan in maybe half an hour, which before that would have taken us a couple of days. Then you come onto the discussion guide or the usability testing structure and the test plan and so on. So we do it to save us time. But my question here, I wanted to give you a bit of a story, was because if you've got, certainly within just some VML, if you've got 30,000 people using it on a daily basis, it starts to become a very expensive tool. Now, within Open, they've released, within this operating system, you can now see for every conversation you have, how many tokens has been used, and they assign a dollar value to it. And I'm shocked at the amount I'm spending alone, just on a daily basis. Times that by 30,000, it becomes very expensive. So I think my question, or maybe just this discussion, I know we haven't got that long, but there will become a point where certainly the bigger organizations will start to restrict how you use it and which tools you're using. If you're a small business and you've got 2 or 3 people using it, you won't be over the criteria, right? You won't hit your limits maybe. But if you've got 30,000 people spending a lot of money, do you really get return on investment? And my guess is probably not in the short term, not until you work out where you should be using it, how you should be using it, and what's giving you the best bang for your buck, really. Sorry, that was a waffle. There's quite a lot in there.
I think that's about optimization, right? Like you've got all these businesses that are scrambling to try and optimize, to try and save money, like you said. And I saw something this morning about a business that laid off a load of people, and then they're now effectively still spending like the average salary of what they would have on tokens if they'd have kept the people in, right? So I think that's why it's so important to be documenting what's successful, keeping an eye on what's working, what isn't, because ultimately, yeah, you could get everything being ran agentically, but it's costing you more than human beings doing maybe not as quick a job, but I don't know, it depends on what the role is. But yeah, I think it's all about making sure that it's working efficiently, right? And I think right now, I think there's just a big scramble to be using AI and to be doing this and doing that and shouting about it, because that seems to be what's been selling, or it's the hot topic. But I think that people aren't doing it with too much thought or care at the minute, personally.
I'm going to just pass over to Manny quickly, and then hopefully we'll get one more in with Annette at the end. I don't mind staying on for a little bit longer. I think it's been a great chat. Everyone's chipping in. Thanks for all the questions. But yeah, I think just to really quickly add on to what Jimmy said there, for me, if we put like our client hat on, right, while not every client has got the eyes of an eagle and is as mature as others, if I was like a top tier client and I expected top tier results, I would essentially say to the design, development agency, whoever it was, I don't really care how you get me the best results in the world, but I want to see the best results in the world. And people delivering work like they've always done is still the priority. I don't think that's ever going to change. I'm going to pass just over to Manny to ask a question. Hi, Manny.
Hi, guys. Really amazing kind of chat. Sorry, I have to disappear halfway through because I've been called to an urgent meeting, but I just came back. And I think I get the gist of what the discussion is about. And coming from an education kind of side, right? I've gone to the dark side and being a sort of manager, right? But it's really interesting because I'm involved in trying to engage with industry, not just within Vietnam where I'm working at the moment, but across Southeast Asia, and the landscape is it's really interesting. I mean, hearing you guys talking about the use of AI in what you do, and I'm hearing very, very similar things across Southeast Asia. Very, very similar things, right? A lot of the companies, the big ones, they all training their staff to understand more about AI. They're using AI tools to maximize efficiency. And then the smaller companies, they're developing AI tools to help themselves to develop better products for their clients, So basically, kind of every country are doing the same thing. It's like, whoa, it's mind-blowing. So, yeah, so in terms of the education side, right? It's really important for us as a university to make sure our university that our students understand the ethics of AI, right? When we do fully embrace the use of AI in all our assignments, but we need to always make sure that the students are aware the limitations as well as the ethics and the theories behind the use of AI. And in fact, they have to document the process really well in order to get good grades. So yes, you can use AI, but document how you use it. But I think at the moment, we only limit them to use AI for research and visualization stage. The final outcome, they still have to produce it by hand, which I think they should, right? So this idea about quality and quantity, about craftness and technology, all these things are really interesting. And I think we need to have these kind of discussions because we are bringing young designers into our industry, right? And we need to make sure that they understand what AI is all about. It kind of reminds me, like, I'm quite old, despite my youthful look. Gareth can tell you. I remember the days when I used to use metal type, and then suddenly this Apple Mac comes through, and then we were being told, oh, you have to use the computer now, right? And we was like, shit, are we going to lose all our hand skills? No, actually, we're not. And so I kind of enjoyed it, seeing what AI is doing. However, we all have that responsibility to show the young designers or students what they should be doing, and also we also have a responsibility, I think, to train or educate clients in what they should and shouldn't do, right? Yeah, so that's my kind of comments, really. No questions, really, just comments, observations.
Good luck educating the clients, Manny.
Well, I think it's interesting, Jimmy. You mentioned about I think you said you live in Portugal and you're seeing all these crappy designs using AI, right? So I think it's also about the community of practitioners in your country or wherever you live in or city, whatever, kind of discussing the issues and maybe say, hey guys, we shouldn't be doing this, it's not the right thing to do. Certainly I'm really happy to stay in Vietnam. I'm not seeing these crappy stuff. They are some, but not like full on, and people are kind of being very careful about what they should and shouldn't use, which I think is really really great. I can't talk about other Southeast Asian countries, but certainly from what I've observed, they still, want to use their hands and brains and just using AI to generate whatever they need to generate, but not kind of to doing it in a incorrect way. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I wonder
that's all
I wonder if the language thing, Manny, plays a part in that, because with the models being trained on, the vast majority of the internet, if let's say the Vietnamese language is, 3% of the internet, it's difficult for the model to learn from that, right? That's interesting to think about. And just to think, when you're talking about the students implementing AI in some of their process, some of the stuff I see every day on my design Instagram, the stuff some people are using AI for is absolutely incredible. And like the creativity, the stuff that you can just kind of pull together, some of like the futuristic stuff, it's really quite phenomenal that I think none of us could imagine. So that level of creativity and like implementing typical craft with this new technology to create new things is a different form of creativity in itself, and it absolutely shouldn't be shut down. But with that said, none of that stuff I ever see being used by clients. Maybe at festivals or maybe some music stuff, but from an actual brand perspective, I don't really see that more experimental creativity being used.
Can I just throw something else more out there just for you to consider? I've just been into the DNAD awards ceremony. It was like 1 a.m. last morning. So I was there with the students because some of our students we actually won 5 pencils. So just want to plug that. But anyway, during the ceremony, it's very evident that they embrace AI, the use of AI for the students to create their videos or presentations. So I'm thinking, oh my, wow, okay, even DNAD is endorsing the use of AI. So yeah, interesting, huh?
I'll just add, like, I think on your point, I think you can take a lot of what you were saying in terms of, I think it's a lot to do with accountability. I'm definitely encouraging to make it very clear, like exactly where they've used AI and where they haven't, and in what ways. And I do think that that's a really big part of the decisions that we make today, and how that's going to define what all of our different roles are going to look like in the future. That there needs to be accountability and transparency involved, and that's like all the way back to when when you become a student, but I don't think that disappears. We're doing similar things internally.
So I think we all have responsibilities, really, because we know what's good and what's not so good, and some people don't. You see, that's the problem. So it's our responsibility, I think, to I wouldn't use the word educate, but to show the people the right path.
So
it's always been a
partner's job, hasn't it? To show them what great looks like.
Same point with cost. There's a lot of like talk around like what's it, token maxing, or at the moment, you have companies like Meta, Uber, limiting uses of AI, and it kind of defeats everything that I've talked about, was that I think we should be experimenting, but that's what costs money, isn't it? It's just trying out things, generating lots of alternatives. That's what ending up costing a lot. So how do we, we kind of have to, in a lot of situations, move quickly to defining good practice in order to also limit use and keep within budgets and all of that stuff.
I think as well, just to Manny's point, I think that like shit design has always existed, right? Clients have always wanted to save money and they've picked crappy routes and they've done bad projects. And our job is showing the value in what we do, right? It's selling that value. And I think that's always existed. And I don't think AI has changed that at all. I think what AI is doing, it's making bad designers worse and it's making good designers better, and it's democratizing a lot of design. But I think it's always been a problem. It's just more evident now, or maybe it's more of a topic now because it's easier to make bad design. But yeah, just wanted to just note that on your point there. But yeah, totally agree with you on it.
Awesome. Well, listen, we're nearly 10 minutes over, so I'll let you all get back to your day. But I think it's been an amazing chat. Really happy that we had so many great guests and people asking so many questions. So yeah, maybe catch you at the next one. And thanks again, Jimmy. Thanks again, Annette. Thanks again, Manny. Thanks again, Oliver. Thanks again, Todd. Thanks again, Gabriel. Everyone.
Thanks, guys, for having me. Yeah,
have a good one. Bye. All right. I'll try and get the
Bye-bye.
edited in about a week. See if AI can help me.
Bye, guys.